Okay. Ooh, yeah, notifications, baby. Okay. So I was going through the idea that there are just like different stages of development. And that it's necessary to hit those lower rungs before you move up to higher rungs. Metamodernists are very much into hierarchies and into developmental structures. All that to say, I think that the album that we listened to, Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, is a meta-modernist work. I think it's doing that work. I think it is trying to set up hierarchies. I think it's very much oscillating between different viewpoints, and it's oscillating very quickly. I think even within a song, it's oscillating. And I think it's very conscious of the way in which our world has become automated, and the ways in which the internet itself is the one that's kind of causing us to move into this new form of thinking. Postmodernism doesn't work in the age of the internet. And I think that's one of the things that the album is trying to say, but it's doing something different. And it's unclear to me if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I really do like this album. So the big question that he's got on the album, Matty Healy, he's the lead singer and the guy that wrote the lyrics, lyricist, songwriter,
frontman.
He the big question that he's quoted as saying is what he was trying to figure out are why are romantic relationships so fucked? That's his kind of big. That's what he's trying to figure out with the album. But put it different ways, like how has the internet kind of improved or hindered relationships in the past 20 years? And how can we actually connect to other human beings romantically? Because things are certainly different than they used to be. So I've kind of got two different ways that we could take this. We could think about maybe we can go broad or we can go really narrow. I like either option. I was kind of wanting to leave it up to you guys. We can go really broad and talk about, does metamodernism even sound like it makes sense for describing the current community, or is it just a bunch of really arrogant like assholes that just think they know better than everyone else? It's like, no, you just are saying basically what everyone has said forever. Or we can get really nitty gritty down into the album, which is another direction, and talk about like, does as it being a metamodern work, what is it saying about relationships, romantic ones in the current age? Are they different? So I'm open to you guys. I'm whatever sticks, we can go with that. But those are the two directions that I'm thinking about.
Two directions wildly oscillating between the two, I see.
Yep, the broad and the narrow.
All right. Well, I can start.
Yes.
Boy, was this an intriguing thing to go through. I'd never heard the term metamodernist.
Yeah.
Until a couple weeks ago when you had mentioned it. And looking into it and researching it more, it's like, oh, I hate this. I'm just repulsed. Like it's like a car accident. You just can't look away, but it's like, that didn't want that to happen. And so I, around the same time as you, got really interested in postmodernism. Because of the idea that modernism was trying to classify everything and, in a sense, trying to like command or like rule over the things that you had classified. And postmodernism was the eventual realization that like, it just doesn't work like that. We can't command things like that. So I guess we can't command. Yeah. And there was a lot of comfort in the idea that God is in control of the things that God is supposed to be in control of, and I get to be in control of the few things that I am meant to be in control of. But let me talk about whatever this is. So, because I could also talk on the broad or the narrow. I'll start broad first, and this felt like it was like, all right, we can't control things, but we can maybe understand them in specific contexts. But it felt really easy to take that logic all the way to the only context we can understand and apply one of the three ways of commanding it, is if it's already happened exactly, and we already know it, and to that end, it felt a little useless. It was kind of like, all right, well, the trying to understand the political narrative, or what are the terms that I'm trying to say?
Meta-narrative, not narrative?
No, what are the three? The ways of growing, the paradigms. Yeah. Trying to figure out what paradigm. It's like, all right, well, trying to map one paradigm, the whole of the political things that are wrong, probably you need to break it down. And different parts are going to require different paradigms. But it's, in the end, I think they're trying to say it's only one paradigm. That's how I took it. To me.
What's only one paradigm?
Sorry. I think they're saying, to answer Steven's question, I think only one paradigm is useful at a time. And if it's not, you need to break it down more until it is. Because everything's a little bit true in the right context. You just need to break it down into a smaller context for it to then be true. But, and this is what I was trying to say, you end up breaking down the context so minutely that it's only useful if that exact same thing happens again. And because the context is so minute, it won't happen again.
Adam, is part of what you're getting at here, because this is one of my thoughts on it. We're not muted, are we? Is that when you say you use one of these several paradigms to solve a problem, it's almost like saying, I've solved it. The answer is always either go left or right. And it's like, thanks. Because it's sort of like, well, great, that would only be helpful if you told me which one. The fact that you're just telling me it's one of these is like, that's only helpful after the fact for explaining when we realize, nope, that way was crocodiles.
That is the inverse of what I'm trying to say. So true from the other side. I think that's right. So yes. Going left is only the right answer in such a specific context that will never happen again, that I can't tell you to go left.
Right. Yeah. So part of this idea of metamodernism and integral theory is that there's a ton of information out there and it hasn't been categorized in a very helpful or useful way. And the part of the problem is we need to consistently be piling this information together until we get a perfect, real logical system that will never actually happen, but will get better and better. So that way we can start solving bigger and bigger problems. The problem is we don't have enough information right now. And so the only problems we can solve are these really, really contextual, minute ones. But it will just get better and better, right? That's how the metamodernists would approach it and be like, you're right, we can't solve these big problems right now, but we're working our way and we're going to get better. Don't worry.
So here's a question I had, a couple questions I had. Well, the one is because this feels similar to critiques of postmodernism. Whenever people want to integrate ideas, it's like, well, fine, but which ideas? What are balances? Because a balance is only a useful concept when you have two defined ends. Are the ends politically moderate and communism, and then the healthy medium is American Democrat, or is it not? You know what I mean? Like where are our ends here? Like rape isn't a balanced paradigm. It's like just rape a little bit. And so, which ideas? And then does integral theory integrate with other theories? And if not, doesn't it kind of self-contradict?
Yeah.
I'd be curious what your thoughts or anybody else's thoughts would be on those.
I do have one thought. I will say I'm actually pretty much on the equal opposite of Adam. I love postmodernity or metamodernity. Dave Foster Wallace is the savior of this world, other than Christ.
Yes.
The metamodernism we're talking about right now is very, very Ken Wilber.
Yes.
So the grow up, clean up, wake up is Ken Wilber. Those are his things.
Oh yes, this is Dave Foster Wallace more philosophical approach.
But Dave Foster Wallace's idea of oscillation between two is
that's fair.
I'm also
saying it's a very Ken Wilber metamodernism, which is fine because Ken Wilber is interesting. But.
Yeah. No, keep on going, Stephen.
So I mean, modernism died with the atom bomb, right? Or I guess more accurately, World War I, but really died with the atom bomb.
Correct.
All of our meta narratives that were saying, "Hey, things are getting better. Things are getting better. Everything's going to be okay due to the inevitable march of science, of progress, of communism, of Christianity, of religion, or whatever. Things are going to get better." And then we realized that things had gotten far worse than any of our ancestors' nightmares could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
Postmodernity comes in and says, wow, so these are the meta narratives that got us here. We're going to just deconstruct all of them and show how bunk they really are. And then metamodernism comes in and says, like, well, you can't live like that. I'm looking to you to correct me if I'm wrong, just to make sure I have a basic idea of this. And I like this idea of, and actually one of the questions I had for you was, is this the Hegelian synthesis of modernity and postmodernity?
Yeah, totally. Yep, it's definitely drawing from Hegel.
Which I mean, I love the idea of, yes, meta-narratives, if you have this blind trust in meta-narratives, yeah, it's probably going to bite you. There is a healthy place for doubt, but at the same time, you can't live in a world where the only reason you don't commit suicide is just because our random choice, arbitrary choice.
Yeah.
The idea that you should find a meta-narrative and you should stick with it and you should be sincere about it, while also doubting it enough to be open for other information, which I think is just a brilliant idea. And I think, especially with a lot of our more traditional meta-narratives deconstructed, whether it's the Enlightenment Project, whether it's religion or what have you, I mean, it seems that it's the only way forward. At the very least, it's a good way to bootstrap us back into some sort of healthy meta-narrative.
Yeah.
Kurt, you had said something that I really wanted to address, but now I'm forgetting it. What was it?
So the two things I said is whenever people talk about integrating ideas, and especially binaries, it's sort of like, well, which ones? And how do you frame them? Do you frame the ideas or the motivations, right? Because you can look at something like Nazism, and you can say, well, what's the useful idea? It's probably not a lot of great ideas, but you probably could learn something about the motivations. So you take the ideas, you take the motivations, you're just setting up what the binary is. And then another kind of part of that, because this is all about just idea selection for what, it's like, well, we're just going to make a soup out of all the ideas. Like, well, which ideas do you put in? Because you can't really mean all of them. And so then part of it is, well, then does integral theory integrate with other theories? Which
I am interested in that, although I'm not sure how well it necessarily fits into philosophy, but I know with a lot of branches of math, you have these axioms where you just say, like, look, we're not going to get anywhere if we're stuck with proving everything down. Like, it's been proven, you can't do that. You need to get some sort of set of axioms that you can just build from. And to an extent, I think it's actually a very meta-modern thing for you to say, like, integral theory, this is our base axiom. We're just going to assume this is true and build from here.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, well, that kind of sucks for us. But if we don't assume this, we have to assume something else. And if we don't assume something else, then we're just left with absurdity. So while I don't think that necessarily completely addresses that concern, because I think there is a fair room of critique for saying, like, well, integral theory, you're saying 10% is, correct. Well, what about integral theory? I think that actually is a pretty fair critique. However, I think the rejoinder would be, it's our axiom. Like, it's the meta narrative we have committed ourselves to because we have to commit ourselves to a meta narrative of some kind.
I think you're right. There's a huge it's at least recognizing that there needs to be a partial leap of faith in for metamodernism, that we have to make some kind of posit to make any progress, because with postmodernism there were no actual axioms or posits, and so as a result no progress was being made. So that addresses does integral theory integrate other theories, and that's fair enough. That's a good answer to that question. What it feels unsatisfying is this theory is 100% correct. Everything else is 10. It's like, really? I mean, it's not like some are 60, some are 2, some are 1, some are just, no, you had a good motivation and that idea was terrible. It seems a little weird to just sort of assume that about everything else.
I think that's actually a pretty fair critique that I would agree with that. Like, maybe it'd be a good place to start. Like, go when an idea is presented to you, assume 10% of it is correct, and then update your model accordingly as you explore it. And it may go down to like, no, this thing is actually actual nonsense, or maybe this is actually a lot more correct than it is incorrect, and I actually really need to take this one seriously.
Isn't it more the idea that it's only really referring to not proven ideas, but popular ideas that have stood some sort of test of time? And in terms of it will be 100% useful in 10% of the situations that you're applying it to.
Actually, I like that a lot. The idea that, yeah, it's how you apply it. It's only going to be applicable maybe 10% of the time. And that's the problem, right? Is that people will take like scientific rationalism and they'll use the scientific method for everything. And it's like, nope, it only works 10% of the time. I like that a lot. It's in its application.
Well, so I mean, think about something like the value labor of money that drove. So this is what drove both Stalin and Hitler to believe they need to expand. The value theory the labor theory of money is the idea that ultimately the only value a society can create is the sum of the hours worked of its people, because you derive value from people spending time working. Thus, you can never increase society's value without conquering other societies. This is flatly wrong. In economists, unanimously, everyone agrees, value is created by supply and demand. One person learning a hyper useful skill like programming something is creating astronomically more value than just everybody farming. And so there is no labor value of money. It's just not real. But for hundreds of years, they thought it was real, and it drove a lot of people to take over places. So it's like, no, that was a really prominent theory. It was just purely incorrect.
I would have loved to have been an economist if I was not already a programmer. Because the idea that people used to think that there was a finite amount of wealth is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, people still do, right? This is what drives a lot of socialistic and communistic things is you guys have all of the wealth, as if there's a limited amount of it that we just find each year and hand it out to people.
Which it's great listening to actual economists discuss that idea, and they just kind of roll their eyes and are like, yeah, I mean, so like the wealth gap, yeah, sure, it's massively increased, but everyone has gotten wealthier, like across the board, everyone has. So like,
But at the same time, the idea that wealth is infinite is also something I can't get my head around.
I mean, I'm actually with you there in that like the universe is presumably finite.
And so there's your two sides, and it's like, I don't know, it's not finite, but I don't think it's infinite. What do I do with that?
Yeah.
I'm curious. So one thing I've actually been wondering over how long I've been wondering it for a bit now. Like a lot of the social justice.
Just admit it.
About 3.5 seconds. Start saying this sentence. Like Black Lives Matter at all. Like various like insert social justice paradigms here or movements here. Those strike me as distinctly metamodern. They're new narratives. They're meta narratives that people are committing themselves to. Maybe you could say that they're modern, because I think I'd be maybe a little more inclined to say that they're modern, just given that people have kind of uncanny like.
I'll push back. So the end of postmodernism is if my ideas are just thoughts in my head and your ideas are just thoughts in your head, the only thing that exists is power. And so the only thing that exists is power, then it's just what we can accomplish versus what you can accomplish. That's why violence is justified for these more modern groups. Is that they are ultimately groups. I mean, I'll tell you at law school, I mean, this would be popular ideas, that rationalism itself, that discourse itself is an oppressive structure by the patriarchy. Like the idea that we can have a conversation, come to a meeting of the minds is just an opportunity for me as a white male to overcome you and subdue you. Which is why you really don't get the level of discourse with this group that you do like in like the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s, is because it's ultimately built on an idea of it's all just power at the end of the day.
You see,
there's no hierarchy.
I think that is I think I can address that on kind of two different approaches. First, I would say that is definitely the more extreme end of these sort of movements. I mean, like talking with a lot of my coworkers who are very involved, hearing a lot of people present, yes, there's a lot of absurdity presented, but no and rationalism is wrong. I mean, like, granted, we're all programmers who rely on rationalism for our jobs, but I mean, I have yet to encounter anyone in person that claims that. I know those exist. I know you and Liv in particular have met them. I think I'd be more inclined to say that those are the radicals.
That's fair, but the point is the group is not trying to accomplish anything through discourse and reason. They try to accomplish things through power because they don't believe in hierarchies and at all, right?
Well, and that's where I'll fall to my second point and say that does not preclude them from being modernists or metamodernists, in that is a form of fundamentalism. Think of the anti-science movement within Christianity. Like, they're a very strong argument could be made that they are anti-rational, they are anti-thought. That does not mean that they're not modern or metamodern. That does not mean that they're inherently deconstructive of all meta-narratives. They're just deconstructive of other meta-narratives, which is a very modern it's not meta-modern, but that's a very modern idea. That my meta-narrative is correct, yours is not.
Yeah. I think I would disagree. I think that even if the anti-science movement would posit their ideas, poorly constructed they may be, so the modernist and anti-science movements would kind of come up with these theories. I mean, Adam, I know you watched that documentary on the flat earthers. My guess is that the bulk of them are they're constructing rational formulas for why they think that the earth is flat.
I feel like I just got called out there.
No, I'm not saying it's a flat earther. I'm just saying I remember you talking
flat earther. Okay.
I don't think that there is a position that it's ultimately just power at the end of the day, which I guess some of this is just too nuanced. And to be clear, I fully understand that it's not like everybody involved in the movement fundamentally believes the tenets of that movement. But I also think that doesn't excuse the movement, because people didn't know what they were getting into in Nazism until it unfolds and you see what it's really about. But I would say that ultimately Black Lives Matter is a very postmodern movement that is same as Antifa, that only really believes in power, because all hierarchies break down, and so it's ultimately just, can we get what we want?
So for them, I don't think they would agree. They would consider themselves neo-Marxists. And so what they're going to say that there is specifically a hierarchy of our ideas are better than your ideas. And so they are going to attribute to that the idea of social equality is better than non-social equality. And so they're not going to be postmodern. They're going to say, we have a better narrative than you, and we're going to use whatever means we can to establish that our narrative is correct. They are making a regression, because they're not postmodernists in denying the fact that, like, we don't know what's better. We're just going to exert power. They don't believe that. They actually think we have a better idea, and we're going to make sure that we're getting our idea out there. So I think you're right. It's actually a regression down to modernism.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not metamodern.
No, it's not. Well, metamodern would be the idea of, like, no, we've got an idea, but we recognize that there's another idea out there that's counter. We need to find a way to synthesize it. That does not be the BLM narrative.
I totally agree with you there. Partially agree with you there.
Okay,
bracketing Black Lives Matter in particular, the overall liberal project, or not classical liberal project, but right now just kind of the more politically liberal, progressive project right now is extreme tolerance towards everyone they like. But still, if you look at it on paper, it's tolerance, right? No matter your religion, no matter meta-narrative, no matter your race, creed, ethnicity, whatever, you have something to bring to the table. We want you. And the idea, which honestly I find quite lovely, is like we will celebrate our differences. We will, come together, and we don't have to agree on everything, but we do need to respect each other enough. And that strikes me as a distinctly meta-narrative, or meta-modern idea. Is that a correct interpretation?
I think the diversity push is more postmodern.
It's pragmatism.
Yeah.
So all postmodernism can do is break things down. So the question becomes, what's left when you break things down? And in political action, it tends to be power. But in more social things where you're not dealing with power, it tends to be pragmatism. It's like, well, why would we fight about what's true? Let's just get along. And that's what I think diversity movements are.
So I think the Liberal Party or the liberals and Democrats, they have this very that diversity notion is very postmodern. But I think what they've recognized is that it doesn't have a lot of power because they lost to Donald Trump. It didn't work, and so they actually need their own narrative now. And I think this is the reason why BLM has actually surfaced, is because it's becoming the counter narrative to fight against what they're perceiving as this other narrative out there. And it's a very modern kind of traditionalist, fundamentalist Trump narrative. So because postmodernism didn't win, it lost. Hillary Clinton lost. And so we need to actually have power, and that power does not come through this kind of like vague postmodern diversity, but actually comes through strong Marxist propaganda.
So if I could take a left turn real quick, as I try to understand metamodernity, Kurt had a fun point that postmodernism can only break things down.
Yeah.
And right now, as I am understanding it, metamodernity also feels like it can only break things down, but like whereas postmodernism was trying to break everything down into a box, metamodernity is like, well, we'll take this little bit and then try to break that down.
It did. Wait, say that again, Taz.
Where postmodernism tries to break everything down, metamodernity tries to take just like a little bit that fell off of postmodernism, you know, when it like tried to hold everything in hand. It's like the things that are falling, it's like, oh, let's just try to categorize just this. And in many ways, my initial reaction that I guess I'm still in is, doesn't that feel like just a less useful postmodernism?
Well, so I think what I would say, because this is I think this was from you, Liv. You can tell me where it's from, but like the way I think about it is there's actually like people that really are caught in these ideas. I think modernism doesn't work because it's too rigid. It's funny that Christians get so caught up in modernism nowadays, but Christians hated modernism when it came into play. Modernism was Darwin, Freud. Yeah. It was like all the people who explained the world that Christians were like, no, we're not for this. But then
Marx is very modern.
Yeah, and Marx. And so because Christians were still more in this kind of more spiritual view of the world. We can't explain it, you know. So it's kind of funny that nowadays Christians seem to hold on to modernism like it just means things are true. And it's like, I don't think you know who you're aligning yourself with.
Yeah.
But that didn't work. Postmodern people feel lost. I think this is kind of where the movement's coming out of. Postmodernism just leaves you with, so what do? I need to have a life. So if modernism said, we can tell you exactly what the ideal is, postmodernism broke down every ideal. Metamodern is like saying, fine, I don't exactly know where the ideal is, but I know this is better than this. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to reconstruct, not from I know everything that modernism had, to say it's not just nothing's true. I can at least say this. I can at least pursue a direction of meaning.
Okay, so in that case, it feels like kind of going back to what we were talking about last week, postmodernity was this top-down attempt to control or dominate, and metamodernity, you're trying to say, is like, we're going to compare these two bits and then try to find an axiom from that and then hopefully build up.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I actually really like that a lot. Yeah, there's no teleology, there's no ideal in metamodernism, because that's what the postmodernity did a good job of getting rid of the meta narratives, the big goals for humanity to search for. But we can still all kind of observe in our practical life that, nope, this person's just hotter than this other person. And we kind of just know it.
And that's really the main thing it's about.
Yeah.
He's trying to take us to dating.
All right, so now that the veil's off, this is what we're really talking about. I haven't been able to figure out who's hotter.
All right, so real quick, I wanted to just go through the 5 beliefs necessary for tackling and just get like a quick temperature pulse on if we believe them.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Because number 2 is the one I get spicy about, but
fair.
Awareness of allergies. I can't think of a reason why I don't love this.
Yeah. I actually really like it too. Like the idea that we're allergic to bad ideas, but you have to figure out why you are allergic.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Number 2, belief in progress. This, I have since 3.5 seconds ago. No, since early high school, I have felt a little soloed out in my belief that we are not making progress. And there's a couple of different ways that you have to talk about it, because as a society, I think it is easy to make the argument that we are getting better. As people, I don't think we are.
Yeah, okay.
I think I'm actually pretty inclined to agree with you, Adam, in that, like, yes, we no longer have slaves in America. That's just objectively from one bad situation to a much better situation. Despite the fact that America is in a bunch of, I found out recently, not wars, but police actions. We have not been at war since World War II, fun fact. But we are still experiencing one of the greatest eras of peace in the world for like all of time.
Great eras of peace.
Oh yeah.
Like that is unprecedented. Like, people have, in general, like, literacy is high, which I have mixed feelings on because of the peasants. But in general, the world is getting better. But I think I am actually 100% with you, Adam, in that, like, yeah, but people don't change. And I think it's important to realize that, like, that society is still a veneer. And
I'm not saying society's gotten better. I'm saying you could make the argument for it.
Okay. Oh, sorry. And don't let me put words in your mouth. I would argue that, at the very least, the veneer of society has gotten better. Material status has gotten better, which I don't think is something you can trivialize, in that, like, yeah, really, life really sucks when you're starving to death, or when you're working in someone else's field and getting nothing for it, or what have you.
So what Liv and I did talk about in relation to this, I remember a few weeks ago, we went out to a restaurant. It's a crazy thing. You guys should, I'm serious.
Try it sometime.
I don't know if you remember that from before.
I've gone one or two. It's honestly, like, it is kind of a weird experience doing that now.
Yeah. It's so, like, stimulating. It's like it's almost like we're just depressed from sitting outside. Our conversation just, like, flowed so much easier. I'm talking like we're a couple, but so no, but the idea that I agree with your guys' sentiment. Certain material elements of society have gotten better: slavery, lack of, like, large-scale violence, but people are probably overall getting worse in a lot of ways. But I think what I would agree with is that because of the passage of time, there is the capability for certain people to be better, I guess we'll just say. So for the growing people who want to engage, we have it's sort of like science, right? It's very likely that people are worse at dealing with the material world now than they were 500 years ago. You can't even make a freaking campfire, most of these people. So they're actually worse at the material world. However, because we have a wealth of knowledge from all the history, there's actually the capability for people to be extremely well adapted to any scenario for interacting with the physical world. And so as people, I would agree that a lot of our things like technology, all this stuff, can make us worse. But the position I would agree with is that as time goes on, we get the opportunity to learn from what happened before. And so that there's at least this capability that, so progress wouldn't mean, I don't know, I probably wouldn't agree with progress of society. I would agree with progress of thought, though.
Maybe common knowledge.
Yeah.
I think common knowledge is what you're looking for.
Yeah, maybe that's right. That there's, like, we still have the Stoics. And so, it's like, well, great. I mean, we can learn from the Stoics and we can test them versus other ideas and be like, yeah, those guys were stupid. The Stoics were better. We can also be like, these guys kind of added on to what they did. Or, I mean, you have a growth from it. So as time goes on,
we have stoicism and indoor plumbing, which is, like, pretty.
Yeah, like, I'll take both.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I want to get a better definition of what we mean by we are getting better as a society, because right now I think our standard of living is rising and not much else.
I do know that violence, the amount of people that are dying per capita, has drastically gone down. This is the Better Angels of Ourselves, the Steven Pinker, that just across the board there is considerably less violence per capita now than has ever been. Way more people were killing each other 500 years ago than there are now. So we're just an overall less violent and combative society. Um,
Of course. I mean, so World War II, World War I were obviously like the biggest deaths, and we tend to get a couple per century. And there's obviously the whole nuclear deterrence thing.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we break that trend, because it's kind of gone pretty consistent for like a long time.
Yeah.
Which, very apropos, have any of you guys read Chemical for Leibowitz?
No, I haven't, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Beautifully well done. It's pretty much this exact theme that like doesn't like humanity doesn't change. The apocalypse comes, apocalypse goes. People like you have some people that are great and some people that are not. And it is. I mean, there's a lot of themes tackled, but that I would just relatedly highly recommend that. I was going to say something. And I think I would say, in addition to the violence, I mean, insert hot topic of the, what now? What cadence are we at now? Like 2 weeks. It's already on the out. But I mean, one thing I do wish that like would be at least acknowledged is, people seem very quick to be like, oh my gosh, it's like we're back in Jim Crow. It's like, no, we're not. Are you kidding me? Like, things have gotten so much better than they were in the 60s. Things have gotten so much better than they were in the late 1800s. Things have gotten so much better than they were in the early 1800s. Like, black people are not slaves.
Yeah.
Like, they are now respectable members of society that are equals. And so, like, and certainly, like, racism still happens, whatever. I don't think anyone's denying that. But, like, I don't know. Things have clearly gotten better and seem to be continuing in that direction, at least up until, like, a month ago when things decided just to completely blow up. And now I actually do kind of wonder if things are going to get better or worse because of this. But
well, but it's the framing of the whole thing, right? Like slavery is a pretty rough one. So I'll definitely hand that one over to you. But African-American communities were actually doing better economically.
In the 50s.
And so that's like, okay. I mean, and I'm not trying to take back the civil rights laws by any means. All I'm trying to say is how we measure society determines our results. If we're just measuring, do we have certain legal rights a certain way, or are we asking, are people actually better as beings with souls or something like that?
Two things to that. The first is, at least according to Thomas Sowell, that was mainly due to the welfare state, not due to which I'm not saying you were saying that was due to.
No, I would agree with his analysis.
Second,
though, people are unhappy in a welfare state. That's part of my point.
Agreed. I think just in response to your "Are we better as people" or whatever. I mean, and again, this is only one particular topic, but 1960s, like if you, a white person, walked up to a black guy and called him the N-word, how many people would bat an eye then versus now? Like then, you would probably you might get a few people like shaking their fingers depending on where you're at in the country. You might get some people like nodding in approval. Now you'd be lucky if you didn't get like an entire mob ripping you limb from limb, which may be a bit extreme, but I kind of nod my head in approval. Like, yeah, people should be really pissed off at you for that. And so I don't want to concentrate too much on one particular issue, but I also don't want to straw man the whole progress thing, because I think in certain respects, like things are getting better.
That's very meta-modern of you.
I continue to play the skeptic.
No, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
I do too. I often just don't know what we're talking about, because the idea of differentiating between different ways of framing an issue to understand what is the correct lens, that's not new. That's like what everyone's always been doing. And so the idea of using multiple paradigms, that's also not new.
Well, the Romantics would just say there was only ever one lens to look at everything through. So I don't. Anyway, continue.
And so I mean, I enjoy it. To be clear, I'm not. I don't know if I say as far as skeptical. I'm not quite sure what. I understand the psychological component of metamodernism, which is we've deconstructed. Now we need to at least start building, even if we don't totally know. Fine, it's hard to identify complete ideals. Fine, it's hard to do. Yeah, great. But we need to start constructing useful ways to build values. I love that, but in terms of a lot of the integral theory stuff, I just often feel like I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know what you're saying that feels different.
They might just say that's because you're already metamodern,
and that might be true.
And like you didn't grow up in a modernist society 100 years ago where you haven't been taught to think that way. They might say that. We're like, no, you just have been already ingrained in this, and that's why it seems natural to you. and it's because you're smarter than most people. Like you are. Like you've already made that jump.
That could be true. I just could imagine it going either way.
Yeah.
Like me talking to somebody from, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, who's also like an intellectual. I could imagine it being like there's this clear difference. I could imagine also being like
they're the same.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you want to go through the rest, Taz?
Say again?
Did you want to go through the rest of those, or was that the big sticking one?
I still don't know if we've defined progress, because right now I am only willing to agree that the standard of living has risen.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm going to include violence in that, correct?
I am going to push back on the violence thing, because I think one of the things that has also increased, and I don't know, and maybe this is the dark side of progress, but it's just the opportunity to display our humanity, which is not changing. So
interesting. I like that.
You mean
I'm not talking about abortion.
You mean like you have the same depraved person who knew they could get away with murder 100 years ago, but now thinks they can't. Is that right, Adam? There's something like that. But if you scale it up, it's the society that used to invade, but now thinks, great, America would nuke us if we did.
Kind of, yeah. 500 years ago, the only way to the main way of dominating somebody was killing them, and now we have the opportunity to dominate somebody so many other ways that we don't have to be violent. And so, in that way, I think violence as a metric is inherently kind of useless.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's very Yep.
I appreciate the point, but I think the standard of living has risen. I'm just not ready to say anything else because, and I'm going to say something really ignorant, and I'm also playing devil's advocate in case anybody is watching this on YouTube. But modern slavery is still very real.
Yep. And
I think that the standard of living of slaves in the South has increased proportionally to just the poorest of us in relationship to slave owners and the 1%. And I think standard of living has risen above slavery, but like it's not better. I don't know. It's hard to say that on camera, but it's just, have we actually progressed? I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that point, Adam, because I was really with you before on the notion of looking at actually human values rather than material values. But looking at that, the value of having your own autonomy, whether you're rich or poor, is huge versus just being a slave where you have no ability to, you know what I mean? So that feels like more like a human value that I would put tons of.
And this is definitely the devil's advocate argument. This is me making my own argument to the extreme.
Okay. Yeah. I see your point in regard to money, but not in regard to slavery, certainly.
Okay, so you would want to say autonomy is a better metric than violence.
And I think I would actually also disagree with the, even just the economics. Slaves didn't have air conditioning, or living conditions, that is. Like,
Adam's point was relative. Adam's point was the relative position, right? Is that right?
I mean,
that's what Steven said.
I still say I'll lean into that and say, like, yeah, even if relatively, we've still gotten better because the point at which everyone is relative has skyrocketed. And so back then, if the richest person in the world, like, let's say we're all relative to the richest person in the world who has $1,000, just to keep things simple. And then 100 years pass, the richest person in the world has $20 million. And we're all relative to that, to the point where only a few people are even anywhere close to $1,000. It's like, yes, proportionally speaking, things have gotten way out of hand. This guy is completely dominating everyone else, but he's also dragged, or she has dragged, all of us up along with them.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's how I would respond to that. I could be wrong on that, but Like,
So you guys kind of all agreed with me that people morally, I think is how I'll say it. I don't think we're getting better. Maybe that's my real argument.
I agree with
I think
you.
humanity is humanity is humanity.
So this is where I'm actually not sure. I think you might be right that the average person is less moral, but I'm wondering if there's a degree to where the top 1% of moral people might be better than the top 1%. 200.
Why would you have said that? Because, okay, yeah. Tell me more.
Well, this is going to be related to maybe like your idea of like wealth. Like the richest person now has that much more capability to do that much more good.
I don't think capability to do good reflects a more moral person.
Yeah,
I think the woman getting 2 pennies or a 0.2 pennies was doing better than the ones given a ton more.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm actually inclined to agree with Adam there.
Do you not think that there are maybe more Mother Teresas than there used to be in the past? I don't know. This is just
no. I don't.
Okay.
And I mean that's a hard one to quantify, but an axiom that I have held true is that no.
See, I was thinking
do you think there's less? You think there's less?
He thinks there are less people as good as Mother Teresa.
Well, no, because Adam seems to be inclined to say they're equal.
Kurt, you were saying they were less before, I believe. You said people are getting worse, and I don't think that.
Sorry, we're on several different things here because we're switching paradigms.
Yeah, that's all.
Well, it's interesting that would you agree that the society in which we live, we can say America for the moment, but global maybe even, has created a situation in which it is easier for people to become better. That does not mean that the potential for evil has been lost. That does not mean the potential for good has been lost. It just means the road to goodness is easier. Because there are certain, like, before you quickly say no, can you imagine a society in which that is possible? And if you can't, well, then what makes one society better than another society?
So I would not say easier. I would say more efficacious. So like, it's obviously we have YouTube, which has a lot of garbage on it. So it's really easy to waste your time. We have Facebook. Before the person devoted to doing good, imagine not being able to read all the authors you've read that have enlightened your soul. Right. You know what I mean? So it's not, we've created a lot of things to pull us away from doing what's good. But for the person who is devoted to doing what is good, we have so many more resources. I mean, I can't believe we deny that there's a lot of these books we read are enlightening us in the correct way that we ought to be enlightened. And
I guess this is why I'm maybe another way that I'm wondering.
I hear Liv's argument in what you're saying.
The top 1% has that much more opportunity to be those better people and are becoming those better people.
Gotcha. And I'm saying opportunity doesn't matter. I'm saying it's the same ratio of the population who desire to be enlightened and try has always been the same.
Got it.
And ratio of the population, and just in terms of the depravity of man, I can break it down to myself. There's the ratio of me that's depraved versus sanctified, and it's I think that is the same for every living person who's ever lived. But I get what you're saying now of like, I do have more opportunity to become better, but that's the same thing as I was saying. We have more opportunity to do worse, which is brought about by technology and improvement, but that's progress. Maybe the argument for progress. All right. Okay. So I was trying to say, morally, we're not getting better. The individuals might have more capacity. Can you be more moral, or is it a journey? We'll come back.
I think I actually get what you're playing with, and I think to an extent I agree. I'm curious, how do you address the ratio phenomenon with Liv's statistic on like, but violence is down, but murders are down?
Kurt, was kind of picking this up. The idea that, like, I think the amount of people who would murder if they could get away with it is the same. And
we're now distracted by video games and YouTube or whatever, rather than,
Sure.
Yeah, that would be the idea, though, that we've actually created a society that makes less violent people, which is actually pretty interesting. So then the individual isn't any better, but we've actually made societal pressures that actually force people to act better.
You're bred in circuses, and that's going to be the best argument I think you have against me.
A lot of virtue ethics that is actually you are making better people.
To which I'm going to say I don't love it. I do not like this idea that we're going to pacify most of the people who would just have been bad.
Yes,
that's
really, this is very related to Clockwork Orange. I don't know if you've seen the movie or read the book. What they do is there's this guy that's killing and murdering and raping people. What they do is they strap him in and they classically condition him to not do bad things by forcing him to commit bad acts and watch bad acts, and then they induce vomiting when it occurs. So they classically condition him so that every time he thinks about murder and rape, he vomits, and then he just doesn't do it anymore. And then the question is like, well, is he a better person now because he doesn't do those things? But it's not like he doesn't do them because he's a better person. He just doesn't do them because he's classically conditioned to not do them.
Interesting.
I was going to go Hunger Games for
fair.
Pacify.
No, that's fair. Yeah. Well, we've been talking really broad. Diego, I want to bring you in. I know you've got your mind working here.
Well, no, I was actually just trying to look up, and I'm confused by this chart. Homicide data over the last 100 years, because you switched at one point from deaths, like violent deaths per capita, which include a bunch of wars, to murders, which obviously are a very different thing.
Those are different, yeah.
But I'm also having trouble understanding the chart.
Sure.
It's funny how some of the type of information that we definitely have the data on, I mean, I know this is Pinker's big thing.
Yeah.
Is like, it's crazy how much effort we put into like stupid entertainment when it's like, really, there's not a chart on if murder is going up or down. Like, we have the data. Like, nobody wanted to take 10 minutes and
make it up,
throw that bad boy together.
I think actually with that one, because I read a couple articles on that, and they were discussing the nuances of a lot of the census data. The problem is I didn't do it, but the guy writing this article said that for the most part, the data is pretty solid for like last 10 years or so. And then after that, it gets more and more shoddy.
Yeah.
Just because census techniques weren't quite as good.
Sure.
And sort of all this stuff here, all this reasoning that I sort of kind of understood, sort of kind of didn't. So, I mean, with stuff like that, just in the polls defense, I guess, things have like data isn't necessarily as easy to acquire, especially when it's just a matter of like, well, we need literally 20 more years to be able to acquire data that will show us an actual trend.
Okay.
All right, so we can agree that we're not actually progressing.
Adam wants the W so bad.
He wants the dub so bad.
I want to be proven wrong, and nobody ever has.
I
think we can agree that
everything you've thrown at me has been something like we're creating a better society that doesn't allow people to do things. We are centralizing power at the top, which is going to culminate in things like
riots, right? Like if all you do is incentivize murderers not to murder, eventually they all just kind of break out when they realize there's enough of them and they go crazy.
Or
I mean, not what I was going to say, but yes. But it's the most. Yeah, I don't know. You're not making people better by not allowing them to do things.
Fair. So the metamodernists are going to say the reason that this has been largely unsuccessful is because we weren't following that development progression, that Maslow's development progression. We've only been working on making the communal better, and we haven't gone back to making, we need to do shadow development, then mind development, then body development, then spirit development. So we need to go all the way back and start. This is actually a really metamodernist thing. They say we need to start offering psychotherapy to everyone as like just baseline, because everyone needs shadow work. They need to be able to reconcile the bad portions of themselves to their to the parts that they really like. And so like that's one of the first steps, is actually just making people that ourselves. And that's going to be the first step to actually creating better individuals, a more just a better voting citizenry. And then after that, we need to start building people's minds through education. But the problem is we haven't done the shadow work first, so education doesn't work. And then also, getting healthier people, but our education system isn't working because we haven't done psychotherapy, right? It's like this whole progression. So that's what they would say. I don't know if Diego, I feel like you're actually probably doing a lot of this work. Is you're probably actually helping people, but you just can't help everyone.
Diego,
I'm a little confused.
What do you do?
What'd you say?
What do you do?
I mean, I work part-time as a therapist.
Yeah.
I think that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Sex therapist.
Diego doesn't think that he helps people, to the point where he didn't even get it. No. Sorry.
Side note, that's a really good show. What'd you say, Stephen?
Oh, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you're waiting for me, Liv. I don't really have a response to what you said. Sorry.
Okay, I was just wondering if, yeah. I just, have you noticed that the people that you're interacting with are progressing and becoming better people through the act of therapy? I guess that's.
I guess I'm with Adam on, I don't know if we've defined both what progress in society or even progress in an individual would look like. So
okay.
I'm trying to help them be more aware of themselves and hopefully to manage their own emotions. I'm not sure if that counts as better people or not.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think people can be have had the opportunity to be more moral. I'm going to disagree with you guys on that. I hear what you're saying, and I don't think God was like, yep, that later half, they were better. I think a better word would be enlightened, and I'm not going to equate enlightened with morality.
So I can agree with that. I can't in good faith call it amoral, like no moral meaning. Like, I agree that technology creates an incentive for us to be worse morally. I very much agree. But if
I'm going to say progress, not technology.
That's fine. However, what I can't agree with is that the level of whatever we're calling morality achieved by XYZ person, whatever that is or whatever we're defining that is, I can't say that that person absent understanding and that those same qualities with books and knowledge and understanding is completely irrelevant. I have to say, no, that's a positive thing.
All right, I'm going to drop it for now because I don't know if I have anything new to add.
Okay.
So, as an aside, and I'm talking loud, I'm sorry. I'll keep. All right, yeah. Nobody. I've been having some really interesting conversations with my parents, trying to push this. Progress is as bad as it is good. Like I want to call it like a net neutral, if not, technology is making us worse, kind of a thing.
Yep.
And as you guys try to argue with me that society is getting better, my parents continue to tell me that society is getting worse.
Yeah, totally.
And it's, I don't know how to juxtapose those two things. Like somehow our umbrella term laws are getting better at enforcing moral behavior, which is very different than making people moral.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they're trying to say people are becoming less moral. The more it's enforced upon us, the less we are.
Yeah.
And so the inverse must be a little bit true. the more our government does not enforce morals on us, the more moral we become. I've also already said that we don't change morally.
Yeah.
But to try to argue with them, and that's where this idea of isn't living under oppression better for us morally, and I brought that up Applebee's the other time, and
Iron rod.
I'm just for the guy who tried to cure world hunger ended up creating just corn syrup, and it's just killing us. And it's like it's just killing us. Vaccines. This has been real fun. So I've been doing a lot of vaccine research. I think can be linked to the rise of autoimmune disorders that we are having. We are doing the autoimmune stuff for ourselves, and our bodies no longer have to do it. And so then later in life, we're seeing an incredible rise. It's happening. I don't know. And it's like vaccines are progress, technology is progress, but it's killing us.
Yeah.
And it's our laws are getting more moral, and all of a sudden we're becoming less moral. And it's like every step of progress doesn't feel good. The only thing that has risen is quality of life.
Well, let me respond to him. I mean, to be clear, I've been leaning more on your side than not. So just I haven't really taken a big position on that, because it's a hard question to answer because you have to decide what a moral person is. I don't have the answer to that, but there is a difference, a fundamental difference between our technologies, social programs, and these sort of things making us better, or are things getting better simply by the passage of time and the ability to learn from the past? So, I mean, I think part of the meta-modern idea would be that, Nazism and the Soviet Union were terrible. And so, those were massive regressions. But the part of the idea of the progress, I think, to their defense would be, yes, but now we get to learn and not think if we could just create an equal society, we'd all be happy. Because, nope, they tried that. Doesn't work. And so it would not be, hey, technology, vaccines, science is going to cure us. It'd be, just to be fair to the argument, it'd be, as time goes on, we get to watch different experiments unfold and learn from them. Even when they're failed experiments, even like ours. I think Facebook, YouTube, the way our news works right now, massive failure. And I think that's an opportunity for us to learn about information overload, not overlord. Yeah, that was Steve Day.
An apt slip of the tongue, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, nobody probably interacted with this 100 years ago. Nobody thought I'm pretty afraid of getting too much information in the news. They're probably I just want more of what's happening, because it was too hard to figure out what was going on, or at least 200 years ago. And so it's almost an opportunity to learn still, I think, would be the argument.
I guess that feels like my point, is that now we just have too much information. Us trying to better society and give people more information ended up being a bad thing.
I think there I would respond with it's information packaged the incorrect way.
Sure, but that's what all progress is made by humanity, not by moral people. So let's end this because we're getting really off topic. Maybe my thing will be I'll make you guys try to come up with examples of moral progressions that we've made that haven't had side effects yet. But anyway, let's move on, because I would love to get talking to dating.
Right, that was one of the things brought up. I forgot.
Yeah.
So real quick, the third one is understanding hierarchy, and I agree. I think we all agree.
Yes. Hierarchies are good.
Yeah.
Okay. For aiming at Reconstruction, this one hinges, I think, on number 2 being true. For me.
I don't think it does. I would disagree with that.
Okay.
I think, as I'm understanding this is Reconstruction from the postmodern world.
Yeah, probably.
So we have this world in which we've said nothing's true. There are no values. It's just whatever you think goes. And when I hear that from a metamodernist, I hear them saying that didn't work. You can't just say anything goes, nothing's true. we've got to find a way to construct values to believe in something. And so I would not say that that idea hinges on the idea of progress.
And I mean, I think also just factually, I mean, look at the founding of America. Like, they saw a problem with a lot of the world governments and said, hey, we can do this better. And they did. At the very least, the last 300 years it's been a good run, guys. It's been a really good run.
All right.
Signing off.
I certainly sleep better at night, assuming taking that leap of faith that practical solutions can be found. I'll give you that. Number 5 is maybe the most interesting besides number 2, which is always my favorite conversation.
This is both neither thinking.
Both.
Where does God as the ultimate sort of truth fit into that? Because in my head, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think it would fit in with the we see through a glass dimly.
Yeah.
God is the ultimate truth, but you don't have access to that ultimate truth. So that's why we have to be in a both neither paradigm.
Okay.
So like if we take words and confine the world to them, it's like, yes, it's true, but remember, probably the way you're constructing that in your head is not actually completely the full thing of it. So it's like, yeah, but also no.
Okay. All right.
And that at least be my optimistic reading of it to try to.
I think so. I agree. I would like to add just hats off to Christianity, huzzah, for the fact that kind of the one, unfortunately it happened 2,000 years ago, but the one opportunity to actually know God for all he is / was, like God actually came to introduce himself. And I think that there is something very beautiful about that idea, that it did remove God from this abstraction that we can only see through a mirror dimly. Like for one brief moment, humanity could actually see God.
Yeah.
But I at the very least, where we are now, we see through a mirror or through a glass darkly.
Yeah.
And I think that's
scanner darkly. All right, so I mean that really just kind of segues us perfectly into why our relationship's so fucked.
I mean, you say this as the only married man here, but talking to 3 other guys who are dating, and then the one single guy. So.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah.
Kurt, you're dating then? Is that?
Yeah, we talked about it at Applebee's.
Yeah. You said, all right. I didn't. You didn't label it. You were vague.
I got that, Kurt.
Here's the reveal.
No, I wasn't hiding anything. I guess I had assumed that was communicated.
Yeah.
All corrupt relationships are tentative to see what things look like when the real world happens.
That's a fair point.
So why are relationships so fucked? Matty Healy is going to say it's technology. I think that's the claim.
All right, and I'm going to pre-ask: are they worse than they were 20 years ago?
Yeah, I have no idea, and I'm more and more confused. And so one of the portions of this, and I realize these are very different societies, but I mean, as you all know, so I'm dating this girl in Vita who's Indian, like off the plane from Hyderabad last year. So her parents were in arranged marriage, and so definitely hearing about their society, which is very old school in a lot of ways. I don't know. I guess it just sort of, not that I'm not sure what I imagined, but it probably showed me an example of sort of this very pre-modern existence where it was like, that doesn't look like that's going that great. I don't know. It's just like, I guess all I'm gonna say.
Can we drill down a little bit more into why are American relationships fucked? Because I think if you compare current American paradigm of dating to old school Indian paradigm arranged marriages and all the critiques that you've offered, though I've heard compelling arguments made for arranged marriages. Though I don't entirely buy them, but I think you could still say like, but American paradigm 100 years ago also would, blow that out of the water. So maybe we can drill down to our American relationships fucked.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess, right. My main point was when we asked, are they worse than they were? I realize India and America are different, but I guess it's just easy to, well, I guess part of what I'm saying is it's easy to base things off of things like divorce rates.
Right.
And I very much stand by the idea that when you get married, you stick it out absent like something like blatant and unrepentant infidelity. But that being said, I'm not willing to just say if the divorce rate's better, the marriages are better. Like, no, like they're, like that doesn't stand for me.
So one of the arguments that I know Matty Healy is making, I don't remember which song now. Might have been, it's the third song on the album. Is that cheating, I think, is becoming redefined in the online era, where just having like a text conversation with another girl can be seen as cheating. And it seems like really banal, but like the levels of what cheating is are much less than they probably used to be. And so this is part of his argument, is that relationships are so much more difficult because technology allows for a plethora more ways for infidelity to occur. And so that's going to be one of the reasons why an era of online relationships makes romance difficult, is because you can just be so much more easily a player.
I have a question for Liv, as the Matt Healy expert. Do you think he would also say age of entering relationships? Because he makes a lot of comments in his songs about his age.
Yeah.
About becoming spiritually enlightened at 29.
Yeah.
About, because it's easy for me to think that a lot of the problem for moderners is that you don't even get into the game until you're so old. You're already stuck in your old ways.
Yeah. I don't know if I have that song, to Give Yourself a Try, where he lists the age, like there's like 5 different references to age, and I'm actually unclear why he's doing that. I think that's actually a really interesting technique, where he's actually putting specific ages down for when things occur.
And they're actually going from oldest to youngest throughout the song.
Are they really? I didn't notice that.
Which one is this?
Gotta Give Yourself a Try. Well, yeah, because it does it
29. Then so it's
addicted to heroin at 27, commits suicide at 26. The girl.
the little thing is like 15, 16.
Girls at 16. Yeah.
But it does goes 27, 16, 25.
It goes up to 25. Okay. It's really close.
He sucks as a songwriter.
Yeah, I mean, that's missed opportunity.
Well, no, because the point of the song, right, is that he's older, and I think one of the lyrics is, "What would you say to your younger self?" It's this idea that I'm enlightened now, so I need to go. If I could go back, how would I change things?
Whiskey never starts to taste good.
Yeah,
Whiskey
never starts to taste nice. That's the thing he wants to tell himself. You're never gonna think whiskey tastes good.
What?
That's what the lyric is.
I know.
Yeah. And growing a beard's quite hard, which I can identify with that.
Word.
Yeah.
Same.
Get out of here, Adam.
Yeah. So, okay. So do you think there is a thing about like specific ages being?
I think that I definitely think that one of the biggest problems with relationships is how late we're getting people in the game.
Is that going to be technological?
I could buy that.
I think so. I think the fact that you can sit at home. I mean, I think you and I have talked about this. Like, I think this is a big problem with like American girls. Girls tend to feel more fearful of relationships than guys for obvious reasons. It's always going to be easier to just sit home watching Netflix than to go on a date or to go get to know someone.
And I would argue that with the advent of Facebook, Twitter at all, it is a safer thing you find your small social group generally at middle school, high school, and then college, because there you're at least forced to socialize.
Right.
But then afterwards, it's a lot easier. It's a lot safer to just kind of stick in your own pre-built friendship circle. And even in those, within those social circles, so let's say high schoolers, I mean, give it 30 or 20, 30 years ago, if you want to hang out with your friends, you had to go meet up and hang out in person. Like, there was also a lot more social events, even silly things like roller skating or bowling or what have you. I don't know, whatever the kids are doing.
Yeah.
But or even look like 100 years ago, like the swing dancing stuff, or 40 years ago, disco, or what have you. Like, you had these social engagements because there were no other alternatives. That's how you hung out. Whereas now we do this, which, let's not put it down too much. This is enabling all of us, most of whom live pretty far away, to hang out. But that's also, it brings its own detriments.
Yeah, actually, the lyric, it's in "Give Yourself a Try," that's actually has this exact sentiment. Is the only apparatus required for happiness. So the only thing that you need to make happiness is your pain and fucking going outside, which I think is hilarious, right? Like, all you need to do to be happy is just go through pain and literally just get out of your house, which I think is hilarious the way that he phrases that, and which is expressing this exact sentiment, right? If you're inside, being inside is not the way to achieve happiness. That's what he's saying in the song.
Certainly.
I think there is a degree where I think the song might be actually just ironic, but that's a possible different reading of the song.
So real quick critique of the music.
Yeah.
It's not normally what I'd listen to, but I did end up enjoying it. And I did really agree that this was a metamodern work, where he was not trying to say that there wasn't meaning, but I don't know how to categorize it, but it's like, I think Liv, you nailed it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is the first thing that I've listened to that I'm like, I think he's doing something different artistically that's representing this new generation. Yeah.
Liv, just on the topic of artwork and whatnot, aside from Dave Foster Wallace, are there any, like, what artists of literary, music, visual, whatever, would you classify as metamodern?
Yeah, for other authors, it's pretty easy. You're gonna have like Dave Eggers, Jeffrey Eugenides, Gino Diaz. Those are some of the really big names right now.
David Foster Wallace is like quintessential.
He is. No, he just said Dave.
Oh, do you?
Other than Dave Foster.
Sorry, I guess I missed that.
Oh, I've never forget Dave Foster Wallace.
Yeah. So those are gonna be the new upcoming artists. Jennifer Egan, she's got her Visit from the Goon Squad. That's another one. It's really interesting. One of the chapters is a PowerPoint.
Really?
Yeah, so like it's this idea of like real mixed media. Another one is Danielewski's House of Leaves, where that's meant to be an interactive. Yeah,
really
so
didn't like, but
yeah, no, it's a book that's meant to be interactive that actually can't be replicated on an ebook. That's the whole point, because you're supposed to be interactive and like rotate it and stuff. Yeah, and so it's. Interactive novels are becoming more the trend of kind of metamodern.
Interesting.
I don't know if I've got a lot of music, so that's why I'm interested in this album, is because a lot of music I think is really bifurcated into a few different genres. Like, you have country, hip hop, rap, and then just like straight pop. Like it kind of sucks. And rock has like totally died. I think the last time that a rock album was in the top 10 for Billboards, I think was like 2009.
Oh, that's a crying shame.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That like, so rock is, and it was like the White Stripes, right? So rock has like died in the past 10 years.
Fall Out Boy's keeping it going. They've had some big ones.
Not since.
They had the Fire, What You Do in the Dark.
The album, I don't think.
Oh, the album. The song did.
The song, yeah. It's really interesting the way this is. Yeah, so this album I think is really interesting because I think it's doing a lot of the mixture of a lot of these different. It's oscillating between genres as well in the music.
So my thing's been in TV shows. I think The Office and Community are both metamodern TV shows.
Yep.
They represent a oscillation between irony and the sincere desire for some sort of moral progression. Whereas a lot of sitcoms have this sort of wanderingness to them, where it's sort of like, whatever, we're just kind of laughing at things, nothing matters.
Yeah. Always Sunny being one. It's one of my favorite shows. It's just dumb humor that if I want to turn my brain off, but it's like their approach to everything is deconstructive. In fact, I think at the point where the show really started going downhill is where they started trying to be constructive, and it just didn't work with their paradigm. It just all of a sudden everything fell flat because they're trying to construct things.
Yeah. Yep, that's going to be a good example of a postmodern. Usually the quintessential one is Seinfeld is the postmodern. Yeah, there's no narrative. It's just
It's a show about nothing, right?
A show about nothing, yeah. So the success of things like The Office is going to indicate that there is a desire. Actually, I would even say something like the success of Marvel is like going to be indicative of the desire for that people want some kind of narrative.
Yeah, I've tried to talk to people like there's so much more spiritualized fantasy nowadays. People are eating that up. It's so intriguing the way people have bifurcated that reality is ironic, but I want to consume fiction that is sincere.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm curious to see where that goes, or how if people learn to reconcile. Like, do you see what you're doing here? Like, you're trying to,
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense that both Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings hit at like the exact right time. Like right after 9/11, people wanted that, wanted those narratives, and people ate them up, and they became huge. I think.
Now, how do we take advantage of that?
Yeah, well, and then
writing the next novel.
Superhero movies, I don't think were that popular in the 90s. I think it really was. It's all post 9/11 when superhero movies really just blew up.
Wanted some sort of narrative, some sort of higher power, literally, to believe in.
Or a real hero, even, right?
They're heroes in a way. It's actually becoming. It is the new mythology. People always say that, right? Like if in 1,000 years, people are going to be like, oh yeah, these people believed in like Superman and Batman and Thor, and you're like, what?
They do.
No, but that's like in some kind of sense, people do believe in these people.
It's a non-ironic myth. It's interesting. I was thinking the other day.
Because I do personally know that Diego does believe in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay, well, we all do. So I mean, why are we trying to front here? I was thinking the other day. So I saw an ad for this new Netflix show, Warrior Nun, which I did a quick look up and saw that the comic was at least. Like it offered good faith critiques of Catholicism, but on the whole, all of its protagonists were Catholic nuns fighting demons and doing like it's exactly what it sounds like. It's not top-notch entertainment, but I was actually really interested. Like, oh, it looks like they're gonna do some really good stuff with this. And then of course Netflix did what Netflix does, and inserted a ton of social justice meta narrative, et cetera, which. And like also used it as a perfect opportunity to start bashing on the Catholic Church as much as it could, because not enough of that happens. And it got me thinking, like, man, people at this point are starving for symbol. Like, this is clearly a safe place to like. They literally have a God character, the God character. God is real in this universe. So it's like, why not just non-ironically just lean into it? And it's like no one's thinking that you're actually saying God exists or you're actually saying the Catholic Church is great or whatever. But like, why not just go ahead and lean into the symbol? I think people really do want that.
Yeah.
I think the obsession with these different cinematic universes, but especially with Marvel, is kind of proof positive of that.
Yeah.
So I was shocked. I watched the show Broadchurch recently, which is a murder mystery. First 2 seasons were awesome. Third season's terrible.
The American or the British one?
British one.
Okay.
Very well made, fairly recent, BBC, and there is this character that you're kind of supposed to like, who's a vicar, and he's kind of like this guy that's just kind of there to help everybody. He's kind of like this young, cool kind of dude, and everybody's getting accused of murder left and right through this whole thing. And I'm just sure in 2 seasons that he's going to either be the bad guy, he's going to be a child rapist, and he just ends up pretty much being the only character you end up liking throughout this whole thing. And I'm just like thinking the whole time, like, this is really interesting. When was the last time that like your quintessential religious figure? Well, I mean, not that he was the hero; he wasn't the protagonist. But it's sort of like the whole town gets muddied, and it's just muddy everywhere, except this one guy just seems to be the guy trying to help people. And all I thought was just as an interesting. I haven't seen that in a long time, where they kind of show this religious figure being legitimately an asset to the community.
Yeah, which I certainly don't want to say that like. There isn't space for religious criticism, or that like any movie that depicts a clergy member poorly should be shut out. We clearly covered that a couple weeks ago. But yeah, there is kind of this. I don't know. I don't think it's a terrible thing for to have a vicar character who's like, no, this guy is actually a force of good. He might not be perfect, but good.
Well, more what I mean by it is it showed this longing for there to be this spiritual dynamic in the society, and that's a positive thing, which I regard as at very least a positive symbol.
Yeah, for metamodernists, I think the big thing that they're seeing is there's a lack of spiritualism in the current and just in the current culture. And so like, at least in postmodern culture. And so that's what they're seeing as for themselves as the antidote is we need to bring back kind of this spiritual element into culture. And that's what's going to be necessary to actually bring about a more harmonious balance. I think that's what they're seeing.
Yeah, I totally buy that.
And I think that's actually a lot what's coming through on the album as well. I think there's even one time where he actually even calls like, "Please Jesus save us," right? I think he says that in the song "Love It If We Made It," right? He's actually appealing like, man, if Jesus could just come in and save things, like I'd love it if we made it. And I think that's that, and he's appealing because he'd take it. He would take it, Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested just to kind of just in overall impressions on the album. If you guys enjoyed the album, like if you guys would want to listen to more of that music, or if that was just kind of like, I'll pass.
I don't listen to music, but I mean, it was good enough.
Yeah, fair. No, it's no Switchfoot.
It's better than modern Switchfoot. Sorry.
Hey,
I love those boys to the end so much. I still listen to them all the time, but their last couple albums have been stinkers.
I gotta disagree with you. How many times have you listened to Native Tongue? Like, have you listened to it once or have you given it?
I've done twice.
I see. I didn't like it at first. I really didn't like it at first, and then I listened to it. I think one or two more times. It's become one of my favorites. I love it.
I'll take some time. But I'm skeptical.
So something that really caught me was how different Maddie looked in all of the different videos.
Yeah.
He's just like a different person every time, and it's like, but in all of them, he kind of danced with that nervous energy of a person who is just deeply unsatisfied.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's really true.
Yeah, he'd get along very well with the lead singer of 21 Pilots, I'm sure.
and it's really.
Did they?
Yeah.
Called it.
Wait, what happened?
They toured together. I'm pretty sure 21 Pilots.
Ooh, I would have loved to see that concert.
Yeah.
And but anyway, what I mean to say is, I don't know if Maddie and I would be friends.
Yeah, fair.
I saw him in concert.
That guy was a creeper loser, so you don't have a good record with Matt's. Adam met him like 3 times.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, dang.
Cool. Well, it's been 2 hours, so I'm imagining
I want to hear Diego's thoughts.
Diego doesn't talk today.
Actually, I need to get going. I'm sorry. It's
yeah, okay.
But it was good seeing you guys. So I'll talk to you later.
For sure, Diego. See you next week.
Yeah, so long story short, the relationships are fine.
Yeah, so, again, easy for you to say.
I made it.
I'm glad we resolved this so quick.
I don't know how you guys didn't. No.
That's hilarious.
Just gotta settle, guys.
I really hope Aubrey isn't around to hear that.
I'm pretty to her face.
Aubrey feels like she settled for me. You're not understanding me right.
That's right. I remember you saying that. Yeah.
The mutual settlement.
Mutual settlement.
That's how you get it.
Kurt's a lawyer. He's great at that.
Settlement agreements are my thing.
You just kind of realize that the person that you're dating is going to be a different person every 2 years. And you're just like, all right, well,
lock it down.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Cool.
Liv, I'm going to send you my review of House of Leaves. Our team does book reviews, and so I wrote up one and I sent it to them. So I'm going to send it to you, and I'm actually really curious, like, why I'm wrong, because I know I'm in the minority position. I know most people love it. I want to know why I'm wrong.
Fair, yeah.
I was turned off by it, Steven.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you.
Yeah, I freaking love House of Leaves. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's an arrogant prick that's doing this really complex puzzle.
I wanted to like it. I wanted to like it so much, and that was pretty much the impression I got. Was Daniel Lewski just wants to show off how smart he is? And it's like, yes, totally. Very smart, except like it's like reading Infinite Jest.
Yeah.
Dave Foster Wallace is styling on you. Like, he is just showing off how smart he is, except he actually has the chops to back it up. And I didn't think, like, Dave Lewski, I was just like, cool, man.
Yeah, fair.
Whatever.
I could have written this.
Well, I could not have played.
Yeah. I don't know if you caught it, Steven, but 2 separate songs on the album are actually pulled from David Foster Wallace. So Yeah, Sincerity is Scary, and then Surrounded by Heads and Bodies. Both of those songs, yep, are lyrics are pulled right from Infinite Jest. And then with the Surrounded by Bodies and Heads, he's actually describing his he went to rehab, and the only book he had with him in rehab was Infinite Jest. And there was this girl down the hall who he never talked to, but he overheard conversations, called Angela. And so the song is about his experience with this girl that he knows is also in rehab with him down the hall.
Well, that's why he thinks relationships are so hard.
No wonder.
And he's so consumed by himself that he's like, this is probably what everyone's going through.
Everybody is overhearing women in rehab.
This is what everyone does, right?
Yeah. Mando, what a book to read during rehab. Infinite Jest. That's a perfect one.
Well, and then what's classic is he says he didn't finish it, just like everyone else. I think it's hilarious,
Which, I mean, to be fair, I've heard that's pretty much the common experience. I had a coworker who was like, I made it to page. I think he got to like the classic drop-off point of like page 70 or so and was like, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, how do you feel about doing a topic some week? You can say no. I just
I'd have to think of what I would want to do as a topic.
Yeah, we've had a very wide variety, so it'd be anything that just seems interesting. But take your time, think about it. But we're cycling with the four of us. I mean, it's been fun having you, and so just definitely be open to that.
You wouldn't be in for another 3-4 weeks if we put you in the rotation anyway.
I'm pretty sure I could come up with something by then. Yeah, I'd be happy to lead.
Steven.
Is it Steven next week?
Actually, I'm going to take a page out of Kurt's book. I think I just read another Flannery O'Connor short story.
Nice.
Everything
Must Converge.
Yep, or Everything That Rises Must Converge.
Yeah.
I think
everything that goes up must converge.
That's
styling.
But yeah, no, I read it and was just stunned by how relevant it is.
Yeah.
Like both the son and his mother, which, man, she has a thing about annoying old ladies.
Yes.
But like, man, it just struck me as like, both are kind of vile, but
Be one.
Ouch. It was just psychological projection from Flannery O'Connor. I don't think she had kids.
No, she died. I think she died single. She lived with her mom, so one was smaller.
Was she a judge?
Flannery O'Connor?
No, sorry, that was a joke for Kurt. Because judges live with their moms.
That's right.
Wait, is that
all right? Anyway,
well, both in Boston Legal and as a judge, I know. I don't think he does. I don't think he's even on the bar anymore. But he was like an old guy, and people were like, he still lives with his mom, and I was like, what? His mom's alive? Wait, and he lives with her? I was on the first part.
Well, I feel like that one at that age, it's more like, my mom moved in because she can't take care of her.
No, I got the impression it was not that story.
Like he never left.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I could be wrong, but that's the impression I got.
It's interesting. So I just read The Plague, and there's this brief bit in which like the main character, his wife leaves, and his mom moves in to like take care of him.
Yeah.
And it's just written as this super normal, super healthy thing. It's like, okay, dude, is this like, am I the only one that feels this is weird?
That sounds like moral progress to me.
Yeah.
everything I said was wrong. You got it.
Nailed it.
I wish we would have talked about the albums a little bit more, but that's okay. I think it was a good discussion. So next week you got it right, Steven. We're gonna do Flannery O'Connor. I love it.
Yep. We'll see what happens.
Cool. And then we're gonna be seeing you in just a little over 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks. It's crazy how they're coming up.
Applebee's every night.
Yeah, buddy.
Every night. Would you do that, Taz?
No.
Every night? No. Are you kidding? Every night? I gotta keep that waistline down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I've been doing real well on my weight loss.
Nice, man.
I'm actually upset because we're starting to track with Kurt's thing next week, and I'm already down 10 pounds, and it's just like 10 pounds I can't brag.
Yeah, you can't log.
Yeah, but the after picture is still going to show it. I mean, you make some real progress.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm still like blown away by Mike's picture.
Right.
I like, dude.
Like, didn't he just have a kid? Like, that's been my whole excuse.
I think
My
he
whole
did.
excuse.
For this one. But yeah.
Mike also just has the muscle, and once you have the muscle, it's just.
Well, Adam's got a lot of muscle too. Like that's not gonna be a problem for him.
All of us compared to Mike. I mean,
yeah.
I just don't think we're really going to compare. No offense, Adam. But I mean, it's Mike.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Next week.
Right, as it were.
Love it. Take it easy, guys.